I took these photos in 2016 at the Wat Phra Kaew, a historic Buddhist temple in Bangkok, Thailand. There, I was taken away by the highly detailed ornateness of the designs, nowhere more so than in the main prayer room at the shrine of the Emerald Buddha. When inside the temple, however, there were posted restrictions, such as no yelling, no shorts or flip-flops, and most importantly, no selfies with one's back turned towards the centerpiece Buddha. This site, along with hundreds of other Buddhist temples across Thailand, are sacred spaces to the many practicing Buddhists there. So while the temples welcome sight-seeking tourists, these guidelines are a constant reminder that there's a deeper history and meaningfulness behind the spectacle. These temples then, in their draw to both practitioners and tourists alike, serve a dual purpose as religious and economic bedrocks of modern Thailand. It's useful to contextualize just how integral the seemingly disparate aspects of Buddhism and tourism are to Thai culture. According to the World Atlas, Buddhism is practiced by about 94% of the Thai population of 70 million. Practice usually involves ritualistic worship and tithing donations to local temples, and more generally imprints a national identity of the tenets of compassion and kindness. Thailand's reputation as a tourist destination is probably more familiar. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the government actively began to promote tourism in the early 1980s, and tourism subsequently became the country's single largest source of foreign exchange. And while Thailand's breathtaking beaches make for a large part of the draw, there is a concerted effort to highlight the temples as well, as can be seen in these media components on Thailand's official tourism website. This begs the question, is Thailand commodifying its culture? In short, yes. As scholar Joanna Cook points out, Buddhism, as well as being closely associated with Thai national identity in the minds of Thai people, is an important part of Thailand's self-presentation to outsiders. The authenticity of these centuries-old temples definitely aids in their marketability. Nowadays, there are increasing degrees of overlap between the purposes of domestic and foreign visitors to the temples. Buddhism, more so a mantra than a declarative creation theory, lends itself well to a casual observer through practices like meditation. Contemporary Thai temples have become increasingly receptive to these pseudo-practitioners and often offer guided meditation services. This modern contextualization of a thousands-year-old practice is a strong example of the commingling of business and tradition within the temples. A possible contradiction arises between the ascetic values so core to Buddhist ideology with that of the jewel-encrusted, arguably overstated magnificence of the temples. Such a viewpoint, in my opinion, misses the forest through the trees. The extraordinary grandeur is what piques a person's interest, what drew and continues to draw massive pilgrimages of populations. Once there, it's through this experience of visual hyperstimulation that spectators are inevitably compelled to feel something greater than themselves and critically engage with their own feelings of identity and purpose. This self-reflection is a core tenet of Buddhism, and thus the spectacular nature of the ornamentation aids in the overall experience of both the religious and the purely sight-seeking visitor. If you're wondering how Thais feel about the multi-purposeness of their hallowed grounds, it appears that for the most part, they feel that it's beneficial from both an economic and cultural perspective. From a survey of residents in regards to their perceptions of tourism's impact, the most common response was an increase in investment in their communities, particularly through development of lodging and restaurants. Among other top stated impacts, a preservation of local culture and an encouragement of locals to love their culture. It turns out that interaction with outsiders is actually vital to appreciate what it is that makes one unique. These temples, then, are simultaneously part of their location's history and ongoing story. And so, by capitalizing on their visually spectacular and culturally authentic draw, these temples communicate both the heritage and economic underlinings of Thailand.